Hi everyone, it's been a while. Welcome to a tutorial on how to set up solo projects completely on your own. I spoke briefly about this at the end of my Remote Viewing 101 video, which you should definitely watch if you have not seen it yet, as this is basically a part 2 to that lesson. In this video, we will go through exactly how I set up solo personal projects when I am not relying on having a team to work with, where one person can be a tasker and I can be the viewer, basically like how we do all of our mystery projects at Farsight. So if you're just by yourself and you don't have a team and you don't have another person to be the tasker, this is the video for you. So we're going to cover all of that now. Really, it is useless to just operate on an intellectual knowledge of remote viewing and nonlinear existence, as that is basically like reading a book about surfing without ever swimming in the ocean. You're a surfer once you've surfed. So metaphorically speaking, let's get started and jump right into the water. Okay. Alright, so now let's describe the target pool. This part of the video is unscripted, so please bear with me as I try to describe things. This is going to be covering every aspect about this, but I really hope you watch the Remote Viewing 101 video, because I'm going to be skipping a lot of parts in the remote viewing session that you should have learned in the Remote Viewing 101 video. So if you have watched that and you've been diligent with actually trying to do some remote viewing sessions with that, this should make complete sense. If you haven't watched that, then I hope you watch it. That's all I can say. I hope you watch it. So anyway, now let's describe the target pool that I made. Basically, you want to have a target pool that's sufficiently large, because the more that you can guess about what the target's going to be, the more you're front-loading yourself. And front-loading corrupts data a lot of the time. I mean, you have to be really tranquil and really clear to not let front-loading corrupt your data. And I mean, I've never met any person that's like just able to just do that, who's just a casual remote viewer who's just living as a human in this world. I mean, I just haven't met them. I've never seen that before. So if you're trying to do this, if you want to be able to trust your data a lot, start off blind. We're going to get there to where we can not have to worry about that type of things, and we can just like Jesus telepathic, like in the desert, like see anything like we want to see, you know. But we're learning how to do stuff here. And this is where I would start everybody off, because this is where I'm at. This is how I was learning, and I feel very confident with my remote viewing sessions because I'm always doing these targets blind. Anyway, let's go and look at the fact that you have a large target pool. Basically, I had 20 people in my target pool. Actually, I had 40 people in my target pool, but I set them up in pairs. Let's go look over here at the target book. So do I have this recording? All right, let's start recording. Okay, great. Okay, all right, awesome, guys. All right, so 20 targets, and I had subject A and subject B in both targets. Basically, this whole line right here was going to be my subject A's, and this whole line over here were going to be my subject B's. And I was going to set up a Python tasker robot, so my tasker is a robot that is going to randomly choose one of these targets in this pool of 20 targets for me. So the odds of me guessing the target before I know what I'm going to be looking at are very slim. However, front-loading does ruin sessions all the time, especially for new remote viewers, so please take this part that I'm saying seriously. I put all the code for the Python tasking robot in the description in this video, and feel free to use it. If you're better at computer science than I am, I'm no expert, definitely tweak the code, clean it up, make sure it fits you and your specific sort of things. You can plug this into any compiler with Python. I have another video about how I made a little widget using my iOS device with Python. It's using an app called Pythonista. If you have Android, you can always just go into the Google Play Store and you can find some sort of Python compiler. Just paste the code in there. You should be able to run it. It should work fine. There should be no difference between iOS or Android when you're just running Python code. So that'll be a different video. I'll link to that video as well. But the Python tasking robot, the PTR, is the way that I'm going to be using a tasker for myself as the viewer to run blind remote viewing sessions. So let's look at the target pool and see what my options are. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these sort of options of what I'm going to be looking at, because these are personal. This is what I want to look at in my personal time. I'm not even necessarily planning on publishing any of this stuff, because I just want to look around with quantum binoculars and see through time and space and ask people questions. It's just like logging into an AIM chat room, if you guys remember AIM, or just any instant messenger, but instead of just being limited to talking to your friends from school or just your coworkers or something like that, or your family, you can talk to aliens or your future self from across the multiverse, regardless of time or space. I don't know who wouldn't want to do that. But since you're here, I'm assuming that you do want to do that. So without further ado, let's just look here. Now, as you can see, I have labeled A, B, C, and D. Basically, I divided the target pool up into four smaller pools. Now, you don't need to do this, but I just wanted to do this for my own personal way for me setting up this experiment. A lot of these things are just my own personal way of doing things. To be honest, if I wanted to change the way that I did things here, I would actually not use subject B. Because the last session I did, I ended up, you can see right here in this tab, I have interview 1 right here. Oh, this is a flash sketch from interview 1. And you can see in interview 1, I actually was looking at A4. That was what the Python communication thing gave me. So I ended up talking to these two individuals. There's a book called Kalask. I highly recommend it, but that is basically who I was looking at. And I felt like I bit off more than I could chew with the fact that that was a very long session for me. To be honest, it was I got a lot out of that session. That was such a valuable session. That was so valuable for me, because I had a lot of questions, and I honestly felt like I was feeling so good after I did that session. That was an amazing conversation with those two beings. I can go into it another time, but we're learning how to do stuff here. But I will tell you some of the stuff that I got out of that session later on. But right now, let's focus on what we're focusing on, which is just how to set up these experiments. These, basically, let's go to Pythonista now. There it is, Pythonista. All right. And these are the random target coordinates. So you remember the random target coordinates. I have another video about random target coordinates. And remember, coordinates are just numbers. They're random numbers. I hate the fact that we have the nomenclature of where or the jargon of where it's just coordinates. It's not like latitude and longitude. If I give you random target coordinates and they're used before by another remote viewer for a different session, it's psychic intention that directs you. The coordinates are just a tool. It has nothing to do with anything. They're literally just random numbers. If you have random numbers that are just being thrown about, it's your intention that's going to be using that random number stream to actually get you to another place. And the only reason why we're using those random numbers is because that is part of the methodology of the SRV method. So really, it's like a wand in Harry Potter. The wand is useless by itself. You're the one that actually channels magical energy through it. The coordinates are no different. You're the one that actually fills the gas in the car. It's your power that goes places. It's your psychic intention and the tasker's psychic intention that actually goes places. So your psychic power, because you are a powerful being, is able to see through time and space. You're using the tasker as a tool. And in this case, the tasker is not going to be a person. It's going to be a robot that I've programmed. And that tasker, the Python tasker robot, is going to be a way to direct your energy, direct your psychic intention, just like a Harry Potter wand. It directs your magical energy so that you can shoot towards an actual target, shoot towards something that you are trying to shoot towards. Okay, so let's just run the random target coordinates thing. You see, it gives me random target coordinates. I have another video that actually shows this code and stuff like that, but let's look at the other one. So this iPad, 20 targets. Great, this is the one. All right, so this is the code that I made earlier. You don't have to worry about pausing the video or anything like that. I will copy and paste all the code and I will put it in the description down below. But let's play it. You see? Gave me D1. So let's go back over here. And that means if we just did a session, it would go to D and then 1. So that would be to talk to the Mayan group's leadership and the Mayan group's communication specialist. Now, some of these groups might not have communication specialists. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm sort of guessing that they do, but your psychic intention gets the closest thing. So when your psychic intention is going and reaching out for any of these things, if they don't exist, you're just going to find the closest thing to whatever your intention is going towards. Because remember, communication specialists, those are just words. But the energy behind the word is the actual key for where you actually can connect with another being through the psychic internet. I hope that makes sense. It really made sense when I watched The Matrix and I was able to see that scene where they're in the train and one guy is talking to Neo, and then Neo is talking to this guy, and he's stuck in the train and he's saying like, love is just a word. Anyway, I hope you go watch that. It's one of the first scenes in The Matrix Revolutions, actually. It's a great scene. Anyway.
The answer is simple. I love my daughter very much. I find her to be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But where we are from, that is not enough. Every program that is created must have a purpose. If it does not, it is deleted. I went to the Frenchman to save my daughter. You do not understand.
I just have never
heard a program speak of love.
It is a human emotion.
No, it is a word. What matters is the connection the word implies. I see that you are in love. Can you tell me what you would give to hold on to that connection?
Anything.
Then perhaps the reason you are here is not so different than the reason I am here.
So, here we go. Let's look back over here and, oh gosh, what else should I describe? Okay, so the Python Tasker robot, you have seen it. Yeah, it was pretty quick description, right? So you basically seen it already. This robot gives you a target. You don't look at this target before the session. You do the full session, and then you run the Python Tasker robot, and then you look and say, okay, that was D1, and then after you've seen the full session, you look at D1 and it's like, boom. Now I know that that session was talking about this person. Now let me show you my first attempt at doing an interview, and let me show you why fear and front-loading can ruin your data. And let me show you the mistakes I made, because I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. All right, so let's look at interview 1. And these are the mistakes I made. You can see the mistakes I made because I'm trying to teach you how to do this. So this is a finished session. So at the time of me doing the session, this was not there, and this was not there. But that's something I put there later on. Also, this was not there because I didn't run the Python Tasker robot. So this was just a blank session, and basically I had this base template, which, oh gosh. All right, so let's look at this base template right here. All right, so basically I had these target coordinates. Boom. I pulled these completely randomly out of my random target generator thing. All right, so this was my first session. Remember, organization is key. You're gonna have to do, I have 20 of these things set up. I'm gonna have to keep myself organized if I wanna store my data properly and be able to pull on the data when I need it in my own training. By training, I mean me trying to get psychic abilities, because I'm quite power hungry. Not in the power hungry sense of trying to control other beings. I don't think that's cool, but I do like the idea of being able to master myself and being able to be the most powerful psychic being that this world has ever seen. I want that. I want to be Goku. I want to surpass Goku. That's a real honest dream of mine, and I'm not going to be compromising for anybody or anything about that. So this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to reach out and communicate with good aliens and bad aliens and learn from both sides. I want to learn everything I possibly can learn. So let me go through this. All right, no fear, pushing forward. All right, so as you can see, I've got my target coordinates right here. I've got my session number right there. I've got my experiment number right there. All good organizational skills. Data type 3, solo, I'm feeling okay, I've got no advanced perceptuals, my name, the date, the time that I actually did the session. All right, and then I went and I did the ideogram warm-up, and look, I did the second ideogram warm-up, and boom, here's where I started messing up. Because I started to see a different being than the one that I was drawing. Well, actually, I started to see something like this, but I completely succumbed to fear, and it ruined my session's drawings. And I'll tell you that exactly how I was afraid. So, as you can see in my book, my scribblings right here, there's a lot of negative ETs on this book, especially in the A column. And I was a little skittish about talking to these guys. I was a little afraid, and I kept on thinking, because I kept on feeling a very negative, a very dark energy when I started doing this session, and I got scared. I literally got scared, and I said to myself, it must be the Maitri, which are the negative grays. And that influenced my session, and it made me draw that face. However, as I was doing the session, I remember seeing a reptile-faced being in the back, and I didn't draw that down. I didn't draw the beefy reptilian structured subject. I didn't draw them down because I was so caught up in my own fear. That's a lesson that you need to learn, because this is something that it really corrupted my data in this session, because completely right then and there, right there, you can see that I already messed up. And it wasn't because I was front-loaded in the sense of thinking to myself, oh man, I wrote this down and it must be that. I mean, I have a very low probability of actually guessing this right. Look how many characters are on this thing. It was the fact that I was afraid and I kept on not clearing my mind. I didn't clear my mind. I didn't have a tranquil state. I wasn't clear-headed. And I got clear-headed later on in the session when we started talking. And that's when I knew something was fishy. And I started to mess up a little bit in the past. But I didn't correct myself. Towards the end of the session, I started thinking like, wait, is this a Draco? Is this like a reptile being? But I didn't draw any of that. I didn't write any of it down. I was caught up in my own head. I was weak in this session. I was weak in this moment, and I have to be able to own the fact that I failed here. But you can learn so much from failing. You can learn a lot, so there's no reason to feel remorseful. There's no reason to feel embarrassed. There's no reason to feel sad. I'm out here telling you exactly what I did wrong so that you can learn from my mistakes and you can see how to better yourself, because this is how I train. This is how I'm trying to get better. And I'm definitely going to be getting telekinesis, and I'm definitely going to be getting way more advanced skills some just further down the line, because I'm not stopping. All right, let's continue. Anyway, I kept on worrying that I got A2, and I don't know why I was worrying, but I ended up getting A4, which I was so happy about this session. I actually had an incredible conversation with these beings, and I just learned a lot. So basically, let's just go through here. I'm seeing these sort of things, I'm seeing these flash sketches, I'm seeing all this type of stuff, and then you see, this is another mistake I had. I have subject A location. You see this at the top? Subject A location. This is my first A through D, and I didn't do another A through D. I have a different session template because I wanted to see, I was impatient. I wanted to see if I could zip through this thing. I was too excited. I was like thinking to myself, oh man, I just want to talk to these guys. Boom, 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 boom. Let me just see if I can get as much with as little time and effort as possible. And to an extent, I succeeded. I gotta be honest. To an extent, I succeeded. I got my questions answered and I could feel the energy. However, I got my drawings a little bit wrong, and I definitely felt like my fear, until it subsided, because the fear wasn't there the whole session. Once I calmed down that fear and cleared it out of my head, then it was gone. But I know for a fact if I did more A through Ds, I would have drawn a reptilian subject, because that's what I started seeing, but I ended up starting my conversations and moving on to subject B because I didn't set up any more A through Ds. That is why it's very important to have 3 A through Ds and a flash sketch. I hope you understand that vernacular, because you would understand that vernacular if you were watching the Remote Viewing 101 video. So basically, you can see right here the consequences of trying to cut corners. And that's really the lesson that I'm trying to point out here. Here I put down 1 A through D, and I got a non-surface structure, a big red sphere, so it's like a giant red planet. It looked like that I was there at. And then I saw this massive, massive dark arrow tipped structure. And I saw this massive, well, anyway, I just moved on to subject B. I should have done more A through Ds. I would have gotten better data. I would have cleaned up my fear, which would have gotten rid of toxic front loading. And I would have been able to get a better description of my environment as I went through the session. So now let's go on to subject B. I wasn't really afraid of subject B. Subject B was very much more positive in the sense he was in a different location. It seemed like this was an underground base. It seemed like because you know, I saw a lot of multiple non-surface structures in the air. There was a lot of light in the sky, as you can see right over here. Light that I didn't really know where this light was coming from. And but once again, you know, I only did one A through D, a flash sketch. Oh yeah, and I did an extra sketch because I just didn't have enough space to draw all the visuals that were coming in at this point. But you can see the data got richer because I wasn't afraid, because I started calming down, because I was more tranquil. My energy was calmer. And then the data just started to flow through. It's like a hose, you know, and if you're twisting and turning the hose, that's what fear does. It twists and turns the hose and only a trickle of water will come out. But when you let go, when you relax your mind, then the data comes flushing in. And it's good data, and it's clear data. And that's why it's great to do blind sessions. And if you're doing it alone, you want to be as close to completely blind as possible, which is why it's great to have a large target pool and to have a robot feed you the targets from that pool randomly. So here I am, and I'm having this whole conversation. I do this next thing, and then I move on to my questions. So let's look over here at the target book once again and look at my questions. So I basically had universal questions. So let's look here at these universal questions. I was going to ask 12 questions to to both targets, to both subjects. Just 12 questions, and I was going to send them to both subjects. Why would I only ask the same? I mean, I'm sure you're going to want to ask different questions for different subjects. Well, see, this is where I'm getting into a little bit of a problem here, because if you wanted to ask different questions to different subjects based on who they were, that can be a little bit of a problem, because then you have to have an idea of who you're talking to, and that is something that you would be front-loading for. So I set up universal questions, which were questions that I really needed to ask, but I didn't care who I was asking them from, which is why I have this big pool here, because I wanted to ask all of these people these same 12 questions. And also, this telepathy stuff is getting a lot more real, like a real conversation, and it's getting a little weird when I'm realizing that I'm literally walking up to people and I'm saying, I'm going to ask you 12 questions, all the same question, and then I just look at another person and I just say, I'm going to ask you all the same questions that I just asked that other person. These are the same 12 questions. See, it's kind of weird, because if anybody approached you like that on the street, you would be like, okay, this person's weird. I mean, that's weird, right? So I get that vibe from them. I get that vibe not from not just from these subjects that I was speaking to here, at least one of them, but I also got the vibe from some of the mysteries projects, specifically the Venus, the Jupiter and Venus based mysteries projects. Those subjects I definitely felt weird for, just sort of robotically asking the same questions over and over and over again. So these are lessons, though, that I'm learning from actually being in the water and trying to surf. You see, these are actual experiential lessons that you learn from doing this, because you're going to learn a lot more when you're actually trying this than if you're just sitting on the other side of that screen watching me do it at Farsight, or anybody else do it at Farsight. I mean, this is a real, if you want to learn how to do this, you've got to get out of the idea of feeling satisfied with simple intellectual understandings of these things. You have to get your feet wet, you got to get your hands dirty, and then you're going to learn a lot more tailored, specific lessons for you. So let's look here at my universal questions. I said, hello, my name is Aziz, I am from Earth, it is nice to meet you. I did realize that it's actually good to say hello before you start asking questions. It's these conversations are getting more and more like actual regular conversations. I can feel more and more of the actual communication there, and I started just feeling awkward not saying hello, at least at first. So Then I actually stated what I was doing here just to set the ground rules for what our interaction is going to be. I said, I am on a journey to advance my psychic abilities as much as possible in this life. May I ask you some questions? And then, regardless of what their answer is to that, I'm always just going to start asking them questions. So I ask, what is your name? What do you do here? What hobbies do you enjoy? Do your psychic abilities come from technology upgrades or biologically trained states? What is your favorite behavior to perform with your psychic abilities? Is there anything you would like to ask me? Is there anything you would like to show me? Then I ask for advice on how to perform psychic abilities 1 through 5. And then, how do you connect more deeply with Source? And then, thank you for your time. Goodbye. Now, I do have a page that I can't really find, but anyway, I do have a list of my actual psychic abilities here, but I'll have to point that out later. Anyway, that's not really psychic ability 1 through 3 are not visible there, but psychic ability 4 is the Kamehameha wave, and psychic ability 5 was shapeshifting, just to shapeshift into a different matrix suit. I just wanted to shapeshift into another being. So these are all abilities that I want to have, and let's be honest, if you're just sitting here in the New Age community and you hear stuff like, this is a 5th density ability, this is a 6th density ability, a 12th density ability, what does that mean? Like, what does that actually mean? How does that help you? No, that doesn't help you. That doesn't help anybody. That is not concrete information. That does not at all help you actually concretely get your hands onto the task at hand and get that ability. No wonder people make bad deals and then go with regressive ETs for technology that actually just gives them straight up the answers that they're looking for. No wonder that happens. Anyway, that's besides the point, but you have to be the one to go there and actually figure these things out. If you want to have any of the abilities, telekinesis was one of them. I think that's the psychic ability 1. Another one was more advanced telepathy, and the other one, I can't remember what the other one was, but it was anyway, it was something cool. It was something cool. It was a psychic power of some sort. Anyway, then let's go in and look at my answers for some of these things. So this is subject A. I was asking somebody, the Kalask leader, or whoever fit the energy of what that is. So just the energy of Kalask, I was trying to communicate with that energy. And you can see I got a whole bunch of answers. This is a fantastic experience. I loved talking to this person. And they were so raw and they were so real. So anyway, you see here I've always had trouble with names and stuff like that. I can never really get like an actual like solid thing. But this name right here, like that's the best I could have. I remember I'm blind. I don't know I'm talking to Kalask when I'm actually doing this. I had no idea. At this point in the session, I'd put it out of my mind. I'm starting to put it out of my mind that I'm not talking to Maitri or anything like that. But I still was kind of plagued with it. But still, I just was getting like the K sounds, like, and then the ch, and then the and then a T sound, like it's just like a garble of all that type of stuff. I can't say it right. My vocal cords just don't have the ability to do what I was feeling. Anyway, basically I asked a whole bunch of stuff and I got a whole bunch of answers. I'm not gonna go into those answers and stuff like that, but I basically got a full communication, and then I went and talked to Subject B. Subject B was a lot more positive. Subject B was saying completely different things, and I asked them what their name and their name. I also got like Tashka and stuff like that, but it was different, and it was a lot more positive. But still, if you read the book of Kalask, you'll see that I don't want to go into that. You read the book if you want to talk to them. I'm just supposed to be trying to get you to be able to figure out information on your own. That's the point of this. If you want to know what happened in that session, if you want to know all the details, you go and talk to these people yourself. That's the whole point. I don't like the idea of you feeling content with other people giving you information and then you thinking that you actually should feel accomplished for something. Because that's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, I mean, you have to get this information on your own. You have to be the psychic being. That's not going to fall into your lap. That happens from you being able to have the balls to rip yourself away from all of this psychic programming that comes out from all of these screens and audio subliminal messages that are just like being bombarded into you through our mainstream music, through the television, through a lot of what's on YouTube, to be honest. I mean, literally a lot of stuff is here, and your food, my God. I mean, like, a lot of stuff on this planet is here to enslave you. And what does enslave you actually mean? Because if people don't really, I mean, really try to think of it. What does it actually mean to enslave you? It means to get you to not develop your psychic abilities. And how you get somebody to not develop their psychic abilities? You agitate them. You make sure their mind is constantly brrrr, and they're not able to spend any moment with themselves. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, it's hard for me to calm myself, to calm down, you have to figure it out. You have to do something. Listen to like those long ambient, like 5 hour long, 1 hour long, like 432 hertz meditation music. Do something to just get yourself to calm down and just sit with yourself for some time, and then see if you can do it without the music going on. See if you can just be calm and be in a meditative state with zero stimulation. That is the key to all of this. And that is the key to being able to do these types of sessions without having fear plague your mind. Because I showed you right here how fear messed up my session. But I also showed you how you can get around that sort of thing. So let's look at another mistake that I made. Okay, so I was working with subject B. Subject B right here, I was asking him about psychic ability 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's how I was asking about psychic ability 1, 2, 3, and 4. So basically, if you remember, let's look down here at the questions that I asked. So, greetings, blah, 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 blah. All right, so, and where should I get? Oh, okay, so no, question number 10, that's it, right here. Ask for advice on how to perform psychic ability 1 through 5. So I knew that was gonna be a lot of writing, so I did that on the second page. So I wrote a dot, you see that dot right there, and then I wrote PA1, psychic ability 1. Now I probed the dot, and then I listened to his answer. And his answer was, trust yourself for all of these, just trust yourself. And guess what I did? He actually answered for all of them. He answered for all of these things at once. And I will have to point out, when I was doing this session, I was feeling all these little prickly feelings on the tops of my head. I swear to God, I could feel them doing intense deep mind probes on me as I was trying to do deep mind probes on them so we could engage in this telepathic communication. It was fascinating. I learned so much. I feel so much more powerful from this experience because I was facing my fears, and I didn't do it gracefully. I was fumbling, and I could tell that they were seeing me fumble and think to myself, oh my gosh, is it the Maitri? You know, I feel like a silly buffoon when I was going into this sort of thing, but I walked out of it literally beating my chest and saying to myself, I'm a G. Like, I felt amazing. Like, I felt so powerful and so good because I knew that I had contact. I knew that I made a real communication, and I talked to somebody, 2 people, and they were amazing, and they gave me great advice. So, and I learned so much from them. I mean, you can learn a lot from people on the light and the night. So really just, one of my favorite lines from the book Kalask is like, being afraid of the darkness is like being afraid of your left hand. It's still you. So learn how to base yourself in the colors that you want to base yourself in. If you're a positive being, that's great. Don't be afraid of the darkness just because you want to root yourself in positivity. You have no reason to be in the state of fear. If you're a light being, if you're somebody who's very positive and you only want to interact with positive beings, don't allow yourself to think to yourself, well, that means I have to be afraid of dark things. You don't have to be afraid of dark things. Try to understand them. Try to understand how they are doing, why they're themselves. The more you understand about them, the less you'll be afraid of them. And the one great way to understand more about them is to reach out and communicate and talk in a safe way. And if you think this is not safe, I'm not going to argue with you, man. I'm not going to argue with you if you're too afraid to even take a step towards this type of communication. But don't be afraid of your left hand. Own it. Hunt the force and make it bow to your will. Okay, that is something that a Sith Lord said, but I am going to say though, it pays to not be afraid of yourself. I'll leave it at that. We are all that is, all that ever was, and all that ever will be. Step into that power and remember who you are and who you were always meant to be. Just because you're understanding of the darkness doesn't mean that you have to be the darkness. It's all like color. It's like colors. It's like colors on a painting. Paint with the colors that you want to paint with. but know that you have access to all of them on your palette. Okay, let's go into this. So here's my other mistake. He said, trust yourself for all of these things, just trust yourself. He answered for all of those things. And I just kept going like a robot, and I started to feel silly about myself. I probed in for psychic ability 2. He answered, you heard what I said. And then I probed in for psychic ability 3. And I actually said, in the blue, that's me speaking to him. I said, I have to ask these questions. And then he said, trust yourself. And he was like sighing. He was like, oh, you're so redundant. I could feel that energy. He was like, oh, you're so redundant. Like, you're just doing things like a robot, da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, gosh, and I felt like, oh gosh, man, that's kind of embarrassing. And so then I probed in for psychic ability 4. He said, your heart. And then he said, my heart is hurting. It hurts when you don't listen to it. And I can tell you right now, in this part of the session, my heart was screaming to me, bro, you are embarrassing the heck out of yourself. Stop. Like, you have the answers to all of these questions. He answered you. And then psychic ability 5, I still probed that. He said, I can't believe you. You heard me. And then I said, and then he said, oh, you do like power, don't you? And then he laughed. He was like, ha 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 ha. So anyway, then I went back over here and I continued for the question number 11. How do you connect more deeply with source? And then he got a much more positive like connotation with it. He was positive throughout this entire thing. This was a very positive being. And he said, now that is a good question. Love, harmony, trust. And then I said, thank you for your time, goodbye. And he said, thank you, you made my day. And then, oh yeah, and then look over here. This is another thing, another mistake. I want to go through the mistakes because the mistakes are where you're going to learn from it. So basically, how do you connect more deeply with source? He said something and I swear I forgot it. I was in my own head. I didn't write the data down quickly enough. And then he said love, harmony, and trust. And then I wrote down in blue, I said, I feel as though I forgot one word. And then his response immediately was like, this is consequence. Basically, this is your own consequence. Like, this is a consequence for you just not being diligent enough with your own discipline. Like, too bad, so sad. You forgot the energy, you forgot the word of what I just said. So literally, this is an incredible session, an incredible thing. If you read the thing about Kalas, you'll know that they see themselves as a more neutral faction of the many races that live in our galaxy. They're moving a little bit further. Anyway, I don't want to describe them. Read the book. That's an amazing book. It's a worthwhile book. I'll try to link to it in the description. Not sponsored at all. I definitely this is a personal book that I very much enjoy, and I'd like to promote it because I think it's fantastic to learn about all of the beings in our galaxy. I mean, there's nothing bad about just learning about them. And they're hardcore. They're quite hardcore beings. I mean, look right here. This is how this dude literally said hello to me. Oh no, it was okay. So is there anything you would like to show me? Literally, he showed his own spaceship flying up to Earth and blowing it up. And I was like, I wasn't offended at all. I was just like, wow, the ball is on this guy. Who says hello like that? Like, that was so crazy. So, I mean, literally, there's so much you can learn from these beings. There's so much. It's such a rich world out there. It's such a rich universe out there. Everyone is just willing to speak with you. A lot of beings are willing to speak with you. And if you're persistent, you can get a lot out of stuff. I mean, the idea of failure is really an illusion. You're always succeeding, you're always winning, and when you fail, you're really just seeing your own faults so that you can have a chance to correct them. And I just wanted to spend this video here today showing you how I'm training myself, how I'm setting up solo sessions for myself, and showing you how I'm finding that I'm not perfect. I'm making mistakes. I've let my fear front load my data. I let my table over here, which worked great, I cut corners with my SRB method. I mean, I didn't have a full 3 A through Ds because me speaking to these two people, subject A and subject B, that took me over an hour and a half, not including the meditation session. The meditation session included, I was sitting on the ground with my iPad doing this session for 2 hours, including that meditation. And man, I was feeling it. I really, like, my legs were falling asleep. I was like, wow, I should maybe speak to one person and really just get 3 A through Ds so I can get good sketches. I can let my fear clear out of my head. And I could have handled that better. That's all I'm saying. I could have handled that better. However, I handled it just perfectly for me to learn the lessons that I needed to learn to be a better remote viewer tomorrow. And that's what this is all about. This is how I'm training myself. I really hope you guys take the opportunity to take what I'm saying seriously and train yourself too. This is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful part of remote viewing. So I'm going to be ending my non-scripted rant right now of, well, not really a rant, it's my attempt at sort of just teaching you guys stuff. But yeah, let me actually, before I end this unscripted part of this this lesson, I'm gonna run through the whole process again very quickly at the end of the video, so don't feel like you have to skip around and memorize things. So let me point out one last thing about moving to subject A in my Venus part of the Mysteries project. So this is a page from the Venus part of the Mysteries project that I'm looking at right here. I'm just going to be looking at one page, but this is a drawing of this super skin tight, blue suited, long blonde haired, sort of human looking subject. Sort of he just looked humanoid and stuff like that. So basically, when I was starting, I started just at the base surface. This is when I'm just describing a subject. So you can see, look right here. I said move to subject A and describe. That is exactly how I started it off. When I'm trying to deep mind probe somebody, I don't just start deep mind probing. The first thing I do is move to the subject and describe, so I can try to get an image of them. So it also gives you a chance to acclimate to their energy and try to just let more of that data feed in before you attempt sort of a telepathic communication. So as I'm right here, I'm moving to subject A and describe, and I put this dot down and I start probing the dot. Then I'm starting at the feet and I'm like feeling up and I'm saying like, okay, the subject's on a base surface. That's the first thing I feel. Is the subject on a base surface? And I was like, boom. Okay, yeah, it's on a base surface. Okay, so then what's next? All right, so then I'm moving up and I can see, all right, the subject has this skin tight blue suit and stuff. I didn't do that. Anyway, so skin tight blue suit. And then I kept moving up and I could say like, okay, it feels like a male, but it looks like, it's got like a skin tight blue suit like all throughout, long blonde hair. But I basically moved from the floor up. So we also do these things called gender tests. We don't always do them. We do them sometimes, but you're welcome to do them. I'm just full disclosure. I'll tell you that occasionally at Farsight we do gender tests, and the way we do a gender test is we just grab them right between the legs. I don't know how else to tell sometimes. I mean, so you so you just grab him. If you feel something there, it's probably a dude. If you don't feel something there, I guess it's not a dude. I mean, maybe, there's situations where you could be wrong on that account, but that's something we do at Farsight. A little lesser known thing that we don't really talk about as much. But anyway, that's a thing that happens, and that is basically how you do a solo session for yourself. I am going to now just run through that really quickly of what we do. So let me just explain the steps really quickly. Maybe I'll put some words somewhere around just so you can know the steps. So step 1, you do a session. Go through 3 A through Ds and your movement exercises, which is, moving forward for a mile, backwards for a mile, left and right for a mile. You want to move up for a mile, down if you need to move down. And you get a general lay of the land, get a general lay of your environment, and just be like, okay, I have a general sense of the environment. The next thing you want to do is move to the target subject and describe. And then you can write that subject A. So if the whole session is just about one subject, subject A, which is what I recommend, you can see in my in my pool here, I have subject A and B. I would recommend just focusing on one at a time because it takes a lot longer than I anticipated. So move to subject A and describe. Then describe the appearance of subject A. And then on your next piece of paper, then you can write down your questions. So you can write subject A and then a dot right next to it, and then you can write, or just put the dots right next to the questions. You can see I did that right there. Then you can write all of that stuff. When you're writing all of that stuff, you can go through your questions and boom, it's there. I highly recommend you make your own custom SRV template at this point. As you can see, all of these questions I had typed in on a PDF. You can just use Adobe Acrobat Reader. I use an app called GoodNotes, or not Adobe Acrobat Reader, just Adobe Acrobat. And you can you can manipulate a PDF file. So take the SRV template, manipulate the PDF to have your specific questions that you want to universally ask all of the people that you're trying to ask questions. So then, then just go ahead and ask your questions and just probe the dot. You see I have dots next to all of these questions. Just probe the dot right next to the question. Read the question out loud or read it to yourself in your head. Probe the dot, and then you can get an answer. It's the first thing that comes to your mind. The first thing is the same way as the same mechanics as us probing the all the other stuff that we've been probing in this remote viewing thing. So I really hope that makes sense. I really hope that makes sense. So this ends the unscripted part of this video, and I will go back to the scripted part of this video. So I might have to make another video like this, but you know, this is what you got right now. Good luck. Alright, so I know it's tempting to have a smaller target pool, but let's be honest with ourselves. I have a lot of questions about the universe, and you must have a lot of questions about the universe also. So take the procedure seriously for blind data, or at least as close to blind as you possibly can get data. Also, admit when you've messed up and failed in some regard, but do not be dismissive of why you have failed, as failure is only a lesson when you analyze the cause of the failure. Remember, I did explain about that Kalask session where I drew the big-headed guy because I was just so afraid of going to a Maitri target. This is why it's so essential to have no fear when doing your sessions. You can see how fear was the cause of me messing up in some of my sessions. So you have to remember that you are powerful here. Do not be a slave to the darkness. You have quantum binoculars. Use them. Don't be afraid, and don't be such a wussy that you are afraid to ask questions of the beings that could potentially hold the answers that lead you to awakening to a higher state of awareness. If you are worried that they will be able to hone in on your psychic signature and find you, then you are 100% correct. You found them, and they can find you just the same way by piggybacking off of that direct line that you have created between you and them. But you have to then ask yourself, are you going to hide in a cage and deny yourself greater power because you couldn't face your darker aspects of yourself? Because that is what they are. They are you. To quote one of my favorite books of all time, which is a quote that I've already said, being afraid of the darker aspects of creation is like being afraid of your left hand. And the darker aspects of creation are equally afraid of the lighter aspects. This is also an aspect in that, a part of that book. The book Kalask also provides insight that the darker aspects of the Empire, the Draconian Empire, are filled with propaganda like compassion is a virus that can infect them. Just in the way that positive Jedi in the Star Wars franchise are feared to fall to the dark side. See the similarity here? The balance? The game of duality leads to the same pitfalls. No matter what side you are on, the same traps are there, just approached from different angles. So in short, without going too far off topic, do not be afraid to use these tools to see what you want to see, to learn what you want to learn. Let no one else tell you not to look at what you want to see in order to grow into the most powerful version of yourself. Do not let anyone else deny you your power, your strength, your independence, your autonomy. Far too many beings wish to control or cage you. Do not let them do it. All right, so before filling out your target pool of interview guests, assuming that you want to do interviews like I have obviously wanted to do in my projects, take some time to ask yourself who you want to be with your infinite psychic power and your potential. Do you want to be a Sith? Do you want to be a Jedi? To help spurge your desire to dream big, purge the brainwashing of the mundane. Look at art, be inspired by it. Read, watch stories that are erroneously thought of as mere children's stories. I personally have chosen Goku as the archetype I wish to embody in this life that I live. I wish to gain power and strength, but not to control. And I find that Goku embodies that perfect balance of power, hungry, psychic warrior, and an infinitely playful and compassionate being who truly understands the concept of live and let live. But I honestly don't want to control your desires. If you want to be the next Darth Vader, or the next Naruto, or the next Sasuke, or the next Luz, or Anne Boonchoi, then that's up to you and nobody else. These videos are just meant to provide you with the tools to cast aside the mundane, sleepy reality that is riddled with weakness and distractions so that you can be who you want to be. That is power. Acquire it. Hunt it. Make it yours. Are you an infinite creator being, or just another powerless slave capitulating every single day to pressure after pressure, pain after pain? Well, not me. And if you have any fire burning within you after hearing these words, then you are right there with me, and you will not tolerate these mind chains any longer. Not 1 second longer. Learn remote viewing. Pursue psychic abilities. Passivity is death, and your life really does depend on this. So, now that you know what you want to be, and you've filled this target pool with various future versions of yourself and various beings from across the cosmos whose insight may provide helpful data for the grand experiment, aka your life, let's get on to pursuing actual scientific remote viewing data. And if you don't have anyone to be your tasker, don't stop. Let's get to using the Python tasker robot, and you will be able to pursue these sessions on your own. Okay, everybody, that's it. So remember to record and organize your sessions like you would a dream journal, as strict scientific protocols and organizational methods will undoubtedly aid you in future comprehension of your data and applying its lessons within your waking life, which is the whole purpose of this exercise. So please, everybody, remember this. You are in control here. You're the powerful one here. Go out there and learn. Not just from me, but from the cosmos, from everybody, and most importantly, from your future self, which is I should make a whole nother video about talking to your future self. That's a big thing. But you have the tools. So, you know, if I'm yelling at you to say like, learn how to do this, you got no excuses at this point. So, yeah.